Hi everyone, I'm Alex,
And I'm Ryan.
and today we're going over the book All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah, that's all I have to say. Anyways, I'll see you guys later.
Yep, we're gonna talk about it.
He's gonna talk about
Yeah.
it because this is more his thing.
Yeah,
I actually have never experienced war, so I couldn't relate to a single thing, and I didn't get the point.
yeah. So,
Now that we've covered that, we're talking about a book in English, but about a German boy, which I did not pick up on that until like halfway through. I don't know. I was really confused reading this book. This is also our second time recording this, so we never
Yeah.
mentioned this time, but
well, to be fair, like it jumps right into things, like
yeah, it does.
very quickly. And if you like, of course, but I've seen the movie first because that's how I found out about this through Netflix, and I kind of understood like what was happening
Yeah.
when I jumped into that point, but.
Right.
If you don't have that context, it makes it a little bit difficult. But once you get in the story, it's fine.
Well, yeah, and you also were experienced with World War One, right? So
Yep, been there, done
yeah,
that.
completed. Check it off the bucket list.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. I don't know what everybody was complaining about.
No, this was my first war story. I thought it was a war memoir, and
That's easy to confuse.
Yeah, and like we've talked about doing other ones, so like I just grouped them all together because they all the titles just blur to me. I don't know why. Once they're like over 4 words, it's out the ear, the ear. Not doesn't even go in one ear. It's just immediately out.
It goes in your ear and then it just dissipates into the void that is your head.
Something like that. I can still pick up a few words, but so a war memoir, I thought it was a war memoir, and it took me 3 hours into the audiobook because I listened to the audiobook version until I was like, hold on, and then that's when I found out they were German. I thought they were American this whole time.
Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why I didn't pick up from the name. For some
It's
reason
Franz Mueller Cat.
I know.
Yeah.
And I think for some reason I just like blanked on the first 3 hours, which is like half the book.
Yeah.
Almost. And nothing registered in my brain. And so I had to completely restart. I don't know what was going on.
So, like, how much did you know about World War One before this? Like,
I also thought that this was placed in World War II. So that didn't help, which is why I thought they were American. I was so confused. I had to look up the, like, synopsis to understand that this wasn't a war memoir. And there's nothing wrong with the actual book. Something happened and I was so confused.
Well, you got it though.
I did, yes.
Yeah. That's the important part.
Now I'm on the same page.
But so, okay, like, are you familiar with World War One? Like, do you know, like...
That's when they started using mustard gas, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
and trench
a
warfare.
Bit. Yeah.
And no man's land, you're familiar with that kind of...
Yeah.
And, like, artillery, tanks, like, that's when that was introduced, and machine guns and whatnot.
Yeah, it was a wild time. It wasn't, like, most of it German, like, production, like a lot of German ideas.
So, I mean, they've always
they've been more advanced.
So they were pretty on par. The thing about the Germans at this point, and just in World War II as well, and now even they really pride themselves in their engineering sector.
I was just watching a video about Birkenstocks, which is German, and they like really pride themselves with that.
No, it's actually a big thing. Like they like it's a huge thing. They're all their engineering is like top notch. Like that is what they are known for, and they take huge pride in it. And like a lot of military inventions they did make, but like in this case, not so much. Like the Allies, like Germany, France, U.S. At this time, the Allies are a little bit weird. At this point, it's like slightly different from World War II, but they invented the tank, and I believe we can fact check this later, but I think the Maxim machine gun was made, and that was like a game changer.
I think it was.
Yeah, but it was like I know like the Maxim machine gun was made in this time period, but I think it was an American who designed it, and then he like sold the rights to like all the European countries, and so all the sides had it. Like they were pretty evenly matched, and This is also when air power was invented, so you just had people in little biplanes, like literally just the pilots would sit there and just drop bombs like this.
Oh yeah.
And they had dogfights. That was when it was first invented.
Yeah, I do know that.
And it was basically just the birth of modern warfare, but it had super old tactics in this time period. So it was just horrific, like the worst.
Yeah, they didn't care. It was kind of just let's throw everything at the opponent. And,
yeah, they had no idea.
Mercy.
Like the Russians. So I'm assuming you know this, but I feel like it's worth mentioning. Like the Germans were also fighting the Russians at this point, but the Russians lost big time because they hadn't really industrialized. So they were sending cavalry charges, and I mean cavalry, literally just dudes on horseback with swords, and they would charge these machine gun nests and just get slaughtered. So they had to surrender because
is that where the horse scene came from in the, there was one part in the book that was
well, both sides still used horses, but they smartened up and they didn't use them for charging across no man's land.
But there was one scene where one of the guys, or the narrator described he loved horses, and so he was mad when he saw a bunch of them coming up, and he started yelling to get the guys and not the horse or something.
And also I think it mentions in the book too, there's scenes where he describes it was making them go crazy because they would just hear horses screaming at night, almost dying, and they're somebody just put it out of his misery. That's also that was a big thing in World War II as well, because I'm nerding out right now, but when Americans invaded Normandy on D-Day, the Germans were shocked because basically all their infantry units were mechanized, and by mechanized I mean they just had trucks, so they just drove around everywhere, and Germans had a lot of mechanized units, but they still used horses and carriages to get around a lot. So that was a big thing when they invaded in D-Day, because they just took all these German captive, and they're just well, what do we do with these horses? And they had to kill a lot of them, a ton. And it was
why? What?
Well, I mean, it just takes up resources, and they were pushing, and they were trying to capture France back. So when they got all these prisoners, they're we can't support these horses, so they just had to kill them and just move on. Yeah, very fun topic, but World War I is what we're talking about right now. But
let's jump a little bit back into time.
They call it, everybody who's watching this probably knows, so I'm just beating a dead horse right now. But
whoa.
Yeah, whoa. But yeah, this, they called it the war to end all wars, because they thought it was so horrific, and they hadn't seen death on that scale ever.
Yeah.
In human history.
That's why it was the Great War.
The Great
War.
Until
they had a sequel.
Until they had a sequel, literally 20 years later.
Yeah, that was...
That's the shocking part. But this is... And the reason this book is so, I guess renowned was because, first off, German point of view. For a while, the Western world, not including Germany at the time, didn't want to hear any perspective. But when this came out, it's very anti-war.
Yeah.
And it was received actually really well from the Western perspective. It was, I think, in 1929, it got all sorts of awards.
Yeah, I'm pretty
the book.
Sure.
And yeah, this was one of the first ones where it was written from a German perspective, and then the West really was wow, this is really good.
Other people have opinions.
Yeah.
And I might agree with.
Yeah, that was kind of the shocking part, I guess, reading it for me, because I was originally, I was okay, so it's written from a German perspective, so it's probably going to be painting them in a bad light, which it does in some points, but it humanizes them.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, which I should have figured. It was a German vet. I went in not really understanding that it was a German author who was also a veteran.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, he was a veteran in World War One.
Oh, cool.
So he basically wrote this book trying to he was there for a little bit, and he got injured and then sent back. So he wrote it basically just trying to process all the things that he saw and went through. Like that's what this was to him.
Wow. So it's like girls can journal, but guys have to write a book. No, that's actually, like, I mean, it really does help. And it's amazing that, like, he just fully went back to, I assume he had to go back and edit it and make it into a whole story. That's
yeah, and he was also a writer beforehand. Like, he published a book, so.
Okay.
Beforehand, but
that
like,
makes sense.
Yeah.
He was like, I at least know a little bit about, and, like, go into it fully, like, I'm going to start a new career. Yeah. That's pretty interesting. I mean, his writing was genuinely, like, beautiful. I think awesome. This is
it's a good best. Translation. Like, whoever was translating did a great job.
Yeah. I think this is the best writing that we've had, like, period. Like, I would say that.
You think so?
Yeah. Like, this was.
Really? Wow.
So far, all the books that we've covered, I think this was the most, like, descriptive and flowy and kind of. What's the word I'm looking for? Like.
Poetic?
Yes.
Nice prose.
In a very, like. Yeah, and in a very, like, descriptive way, in the sense that, like, it was kind of repetitive, but, like, in a good way. Like, I wanted to hear it because they really just honed in all the emotions, and it was beautiful. And I think out of all of our books, I would say so.
I mean, I really love The Book Thief's prose. Like, that has a special, like, also the book just has a special place in my heart, but, like, I agree with you, like, these prose were amazing.
I just felt like the whole story felt like that. There were just, like, a few scenes where I was like, I don't think this is necessary, or just, like, didn't really go into that kind of detail, but, like, the majority of it looped back into just this, like, amazing point that I was trying to make.
Yes.
And every word felt handcrafted. So I guess, you know, props to the translator, too.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. And, yeah, so, I mean, with all that being said, I mean, so, like, should we give it a rating?
Probably,
yeah. We probably should do that. I would give this...
It's not like we're here to review, though, so...
4.5 out of 5 stars, I think. It's just, like, I love that it's zero fat in the story, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. It is short to the point. Considering the time it was written and everything, this is top notch. Like, fantastic war memoir.
Yeah, I would
not
say
memoir, but war
story.
But it's one of those stories that's not a memoir, but basically is.
Yeah, he's like just relating his feelings into other characters.
Yep.
Like, it's not necessarily him, but it's still his feelings towards all this. Yeah. I could tell that there was a lot of, like, passion put into this, and I totally would never have guessed that was written around the same time as the actual war happening. Or, like, when was it written again?
It was after,
but still, it was before World War II, right?
And
I would have
like I was saying earlier, I didn't say this for the camera, but I talked to you about this. It was actually banned in Nazi Germany because it was so anti-war, and I guess their perspective was anti-nationalistic because like there's even points where, like, you know that one, like, this isn't really a spoiler, but like he's interacting with the Russian prisoners and he gives them cigarettes. It's like humanizing the enemy, and the Nazis were just not having it. Like, that just goes to show you how powerful it was. Like, they were genuinely
100%.
worried about this story getting around, and like the fact that it didn't glorify war or anything, didn't show anything in the light that wasn't truthful. And yeah, I think it's really cool. I think because, you know, after watching the movie, I'm like, wow, this is a badass movie. And then I went back, read the book, and then I did research into the book after I read it, and I was like, just figuring all this out was really cool. Like, mad respect for the author.
Yeah,
he
100%.
like, he basically dedicated his life to, like, anti-war after this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty neat.
That's nice. So, like, what happened then when World War II?
Oh, he
did he already emigrate? Well,
yeah,
I figured that much, but, like, was he still in Germany?
I don't know the exact timetables, but I know that
I feel like they probably would have just, like, killed him, though, because they didn't like his book, so they probably didn't like him.
Yeah, let me look it up because this is worth talking about.
Yeah. Well, while you're looking that up, I guess I'll go into my rating. I kind of want to split it up to give more of a like, kind of explain my thoughts behind this. But I would say writing, like the writing style is like 5 stars. Blew me out of the park. I did not expect that. Period. But my actual like enjoyment of this book is like kind of 3 stars.
Oh, I don't blame you for that. It's another one of those books where it's just like, wow, like it has an important message, but it's not a fun read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's part of it, and like I didn't care about any of the characters. Like
that is something that I've noticed to be kind of a constant. Like they were kind of hard to relate to, except for Paul, because you're literally seeing it through his eyes. But
and like
my favorite was Kat.
I didn't think any of them were bad. Like there wasn't anything about them that made me be like, oh, I just don't like him or whoever. I just didn't care. Like there was nothing to make me care about these characters because I cared about the writing, and I guess let me put it in perspective. I already am anti-war, and like I kind of expect that from the characters, even like though he was excited to go into it because it's kind of glorified in an extent.
Yeah, and then he got there, and then
like I've already felt for the actual people that have done that, and I already just have all these emotions towards it.
Yeah.
And it's not like this book really put that into perspective. Like, don't get me wrong, I still think that this the message is really important, but because I already felt like this, I didn't need to hear from these characters at the same time. So like they didn't like grow on me in any sense.
And it's hard to keep track of them too.
Yeah, that too.
Because there's a lot of names, and there's not like you said, there's really not that many distincting factors between them.
Yeah.
Like the characters themselves are not that extinct.
And there was no growth.
In a way, they all just felt like extensions of Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And
100%.
So back to our question. So in September 1939, he left Europe for the United States, just as World War II was beginning.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's good.
And he was received with open arms in the United States because people liked his work, and they even made like 2 movies about this beforehand. Yeah, it got awards too. Apparently, it was like people say good things about it. The one I think made in like 1930-ish.
Yeah. But very cool. And that one was the remake, because I know the one that's on Netflix is newer.
It's last year.
That's right. Yeah. Oh my god.
I mean, I already have my opinions about the movie. I can't wait to rewatch it.
I can't wait to ignore all your opinions next week.
But, okay. What else? I mean, should we just kind of get into, like, scenes and stuff?
Yeah, because there's really nothing to say about the characters, honestly.
Yeah.
I'll just tell it to you guys. Like, I don't think anyone will care about these characters. I don't know. Yeah. Like, there's nothing special. I don't want to say, like, not care about them, because it's still, like, Paul's, I don't even know how to put this, because I'm just trying to think of something nice to say.
He just feels so normal, relatable.
Yeah, and he's not wrong. He doesn't do anything wrong, and I completely agree with what he's saying and how he's feeling, and it's devastating, the things that he's going through. But the actual character isn't anything special. Mm-hmm. So
definitely, that's
all that I have to say about characters.
Yeah, to be fair, like when he was writing this, that wasn't his goal. So
right, exactly. Yeah. That's how I took it. I was like, I think I know what he's trying to do with this book, so I still think it's really good. I don't think I gave an overall store rating, but I'd probably give it like a 4. I think. Mm-hmm.
And then enjoyment a 3.
Yeah, enjoyment a 3. Yeah. So, like, I get what he meant, and then I knew that it wasn't about the characters. Yeah. So I could look past that.
Yeah. And I'm really interested to hear, like, the scenes that struck you.
Okay.
Like, from your perspective. Because, like, I've already read it. I've seen the movie.
I know, that's so cringe.
So cringe.
I can't wait to not hear about what struck you.
Yeah.
It's not like you know anything about war, so, like... we don't have to listen to your opinions. Yeah, it's all about me here.
Exactly. But yeah, no, like what scenes in particular jump out at you? Like what were like the most like visceral or like impactful moments. 1, 2, 3, war. We love war. We missed the point of the story.
How do you play war again?
Okay.
If you get the same card number or whatever.
Oh, you're talking about like king beats queen. Queen beats jack. Yeah,
but then if you get the same one, you play war.
Yeah.
We should just be doing this during this episode.
That'd be fun. I love that game. I played it on the plane ride when me and my brothers went to the Caribbean.
Carpe diem? Where'd they go? Where did you go?
What are you doing right now? You just have a card deck all the time?
Yeah. This is one of my...
Show me a trick.
This is my most important thing. Like, if I were to end up... If I were to end up in a situation where, like, I needed some entertainment, like, this solves
maybe read, Ryan.
I don't always have a book with me, but I always have a deck of cards.
It is tough to, like... I remember Stephen King saying once in an interview, he's like, I bring a paperback everywhere I go. That's hard to do.
I don't want to write them. Like, I have done that before.
Same. I'm not one of those people that, like, reads a book and they're just like, let me just break the spine. Like, that triggers me.
Yeah.
Because then, like, the spine's the best part.
I know. We're just materialistic.
Yes,
Anyways,
we are.
Watch this.
Okay, that's kind of cool. Never mind. That wasn't cool.
Okay. These are brand new cards.
We got to get into our question.
Yeah, they're also going to be really confused when it cuts back to me not answering the question. But we had to cut because we had to play thumb war.
Rock, paper, scissors.
No, thumb war. When did we play rock, paper, scissors? Why are you lying?
Anyways.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. So
to answer your question about scenes that stood out, one of them, this might honestly be my favorite scene. I don't know. A lot of the writing, like, really just got me. But I really liked when he went back home and, like, saw his mom. And, like, the conversation they had, especially when he's like, I'm no man. All I want to do is, like, lay in your lap and weep. But I have to pretend to be a man, but I am not close, or something like that. I am so butchering this. But I was like, he's just a child. He really is.
Yeah.
You know, he's 17, 18, whatever. And they make them seem like they're men. Like, once you go into the military, they're like, okay, you guys are fully grown adults and you have to... Yeah, it's insane to treat someone that's 17, 18 like that. I just don't... I feel awful. And so when he started going on that, I don't know. And it, especially for the time, like, that was just not talked about. And I thought that was just an amazing aspect.
That was one of my favorite periods in the book too, when he went back home, because I knew this was like a common theme amongst soldiers. Like, it's still in the modern day, where like they come home and then just feel alienated, and they're like, even though like it's causing them all that grief in the war, they just rather go back because they're just like, I hate it here. Like, I feel like I don't fit in.
Yeah, and they like want to talk about it, but at the same time, like, they
they have no idea how to, and they have no idea how to relate to anybody at home. So then, like, you know, they get it's the trap. It's the trap the army gets you in, because you get feeling nostalgic about it, but all you really feel nostalgic about is like your buddies, not the
people
army
that
itself.
You know that can relate to you.
Yeah, like the people that you grow bonds with. But then
during these traumatic times.
But then they'll screw you over and just put you in a different unit once you get promoted.
Yeah.
Story of my life.
Yeah, it's so awful. Like, it's creating all sorts of trauma to these people. And it's not even like the war itself. Like, it's partially just the training, or the, like, not necessarily training, but like some of the higher ups. Wasn't there like one in the story that just like hated him? Yeah. And
made it his personal
vendetta.
Yeah, or like his personal mission, just to like put them in their place, whatever that meant. He was just power tripping.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, and that, you know, that's huge in the military. Like, the military is known for that, because like it's not easy to, or it's not hard to figure out why that is though. Like it's still built this way. You get like young men in there, and then they'll get to these positions of power, and they're barely breaking mid-20s.
Yeah, so of course their brain's not even fully developed.
And also it's like a cycle again. Like you come in and then you get treated like garbage, and then once you attain that rank, you're just like, well, I went through it, so now these people below me are gonna go through it. Like that's just how it goes.
Literally, like my friend that's in the Air Force Academy, you know, I heard all about her being hazed and all that, and then you know when she moved up into my gosh,
like just
upper
ranks,
undergrad, not necessarily
more
rank,
like
but just like ranks. Wasn't a freshman basically. And
we'll call it that. It's cadets, so like.
Yeah, I don't know any of the military terms, so I just use whatever I want to.
They're just cosplaying. Anyways, no, I'm joking.
But you know, when she wasn't a cadet anymore, it was like she told me now about all her friends that like graduated with her, or not graduated, but you know moved up, and it's like the next thing that they wanted to do was haze the freshmen. It's like, and she was telling me how like the people that actually like mattered to her or made an impact were the ones that like didn't haze her and were actually there to support her.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, is that so hard to understand? Like, why is hazing even a thing? I don't.
Well, it's the power trip. It all comes from that, because like.
Yeah.
Like and it was even more so back in the day, especially in Germany. Like NCOs, which is non-commissioned officer, which is sergeant. That rank basically, and once they get to that,
any of the ranks.
Yeah, well, basically, sergeant is like your first real authority that you'll get. Okay. And when people get to that point, you have literal authority, like legal authority over their lives. Like, I've heard stories like, they'll be like, okay, like obviously you have your barracks, and like I wasn't like active duty the whole time, so I can't attest to living in barracks like that, but. If like they'll live in barracks, and then their non-commissioned officer like would have free reign, be like, hey, if like this guy is like getting copious amount of speeding tickets, take away his keys and only let him drive with your permission, you know, stuff like that. Like you are government property, and like you have legal authority to do these things, and like you can, like there wasn't rules against hazing back then. Like hazing was just what you did, but like now you can work your way around it. Yeah. And like you can find ways to make the younger enlisted life not so much fun.
Yeah.
But you know,
it's some of the weirdest things too. Like they had my friend chug, because they saw her like drink orange juice, and they're like, hey, we see you have more. Chug all of the like bottles that she had, the tiny ones.
Yeah.
I mean, they're tinier than like a whole bottle, but like when you're chugging 6 of them, it's not tiny anymore. Like, and at 4 a.m. she just woke up, because they made her like change room. Like they did this thing where, you know, they had, as cadets, they had to change rooms every few weeks or whatever to get them accustomed, which, you know, kind of sucks, but no actual harm. I mean, they still had to go to class the next day, you know, but other than that, like no actual harm. It was just trying to get them accustomed to like moving around. But this one guy that was over watching her just like saw her drink an orange juice that morning, like when they had 30 minutes to move, and just made her chug all of them. It's like, and she threw up afterwards, because how do you not? Like that's so, it's the weirdest thing. And
I had something similar to that. We would before like we would have ruck marches and basic training, they would give us like this Sarah sport. And all the homies that went into basic training in Fort Benning know what I'm talking about. It's like you would get your canteen, which is like full quart of water, and then you'd have to add in this like stuff. It's basically just like liquid IV, but like it was like this rice-based sort of just like, I don't know, like hydrator. Then they make you pour it in there, and then they make you fill up your canteen the whole way. And then every night before we went to bed, we'd have to chug that just so we'd be hydrated for the next day. So it was good for you. But like, it's right after chow, so like you've stuffed your face at like as much calories as you can possibly get, and then they make you chug a whole quart of that disgusting like hydrating agent. So we would do that. We'd chug the whole thing, and then like some of the smaller guys would be on double rations. So like they would chug it, and then they'd throw up all over themselves and everything, and then they'd still force them to chug it because it was like a check in the box. And then in the middle of this, like, they'd get mad at us, make us do push-ups, and then people are like, our rifles are like right here, so there's puking on their weapons and stuff, and then they'd be like, all right, go to bed.
You don't need to shower or brush your teeth?
I mean, yeah, you get to shower and everything, but that's on your own time. Like, like just stuff like that. Or
like what?
And then suntanning pebbles. Have you heard of that?
No. Oh no.
What oh man. I guess this is very niche. It doesn't make sense that you wouldn't know about this.
But, yeah, all my experience.
But there would be like gravel pits and a bunch of little pebbles in there. And so one of my sergeants, like, I heard about this beforehand, but one of my sergeants actually, I saw him make somebody do this, but you get a spork and then you flip every pebble individually in the gravel and then you suntan them. So you have to get all of them before you're done.
Done with what? Wait.
Yeah, you suntan them. So you just flip them over. Like, the side that's not getting sun shown on it, you gotta flip it over.
So you have to flip all of them over and then you're done once you've gone. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that in their free time?
It's very creative hazing. At some point you just can't help but laugh. We're getting so off topic right now.
I don't know. Like, I kind of get it because, like, I carry around a deck of cards, you know, to entertain myself. And then, like, if I didn't have that, that's probably my next option is to start flipping rocks over it.
But,
oh my gosh.
I guess we'll get back to, like, we'll tie this back into the book though. Yeah. But, like, one of my favorite parts about, like, him coming back, when he gets back into, like, garrison, and garrison is basically, like, garrison army is a blanket term for when you get out of the field and you're just, like, in normal living areas and you're just following army protocols, so, like, saluting. Yeah. You gotta make sure your uniform looks right. It has to be, like, spick and span. And one of my favorite parts is when he gets stopped by, I believe, a colonel or some sort of, like, I don't know the German ranks, but it's like some high-ranking officer, and he forgot to salute him because he's been on the front the whole time, and you don't do that in the front. Okay. So then he just chews him out. And then, like, oh my God, that had such a visceral reaction from me because literally the same deal. Like, you get back from, like, just where all the action is, and, like, when you're there during all the action, like, everything you do makes sense. So you forget all those stupid rules of, like, saluting and whatnot, and you just kind of do what makes sense. Yeah. But then you get back, and then people are just caught up in that world, and then they get super anal about stuff like that, and it's infuriating. And that's, like, when I was, like, reading the part where Paul was going through that, I was like, Paul, sock this dude. Like, oh, it just was making me so mad. Because I felt his pain. I was like, oh, I hate that.
And didn't he say something like, you didn't make so-and-so, or your...
He was asking, he's like, where's your unit? And stuff, like, he was, like, trying to go tattle to them.
Oh, yeah. But Paul, like, didn't say to the actual guy, but was thinking, like, you didn't make so-and-so because he's dead now. Yeah. I was just like,
yeah,
oh my God.
Like, and that's so real. Like, that was one of my least favorite things about the army. It's like, it's not even, sometimes you won't even get, like, fully out of the field. Like, it'll just be the rear echelon dudes who just have nothing better to do. But, like,
chew you out.
Yeah. And then, like,
your living nightmare.
Like, oh my God, the amount of times I went through that transition and then forgot something menial and then just got chewed out by one of those dudes. It's just, it brings you rage like no other. You're just like, oh, every bone in my body hates you right now, you know?
I feel like I would forget. Like,
you do.
Well, yeah, I know I would forget that. Yeah. But if I was in the opposite... Like, I would forget. I wouldn't even realize that people weren't doing that, you know?
Oh, yeah, but, you know, that...
Yeah.
It's a whole thing there, especially in the German army. But, anyways, yeah, so, like, that whole garrison transition, I think was captured perfectly in that moment. And I think that started him down the road of just hating being home. Because then, like, he had a bad taste in his tongue from that experience. Yeah. And he's just like, does it mean nothing that I've been on the front this whole time? Do I get no leeway? And of course he doesn't. Then he goes home and he's just like, wow, nothing's changed.
Yeah,
the only thing that's changed is I can't relate anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like he was the only one that changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, like, well, first, before we continue going, like, spoiler warning, kind of. I don't really know what we could spoil because...
Yeah, this is very vague. Like, it's not, like, big plot points.
Yeah, and it's, like, the war, we know what happened. I mean, except for, like, the very last chapter.
Yeah.
Which would spoil the book. But even, I feel like everyone can see it coming.
Yeah.
It's the war. I don't know. It
was just leading that way the whole time.
Exactly. So, we'll just say, like, spoiler warning now, but... You'll still enjoy it, whether you know it. It's like if you like this kind of stuff, you already know what happens. It's like saying, like, spoiler warning, at the end of the Bible, Jesus dies. Like,
what?
You know, we know these sorts of things because we've been taught it in history, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll just say that
and
now.
like the war, spoiler alert, the war doesn't end well for the Germans. Like, so they like lose. It's crazy. Like, dude, I know there's some people who would watch this and be like, wait, they lost?
Like, I thought the Germans were the Allies.
I know, for real. Dude, some people are so oblivious to history. But anyways.
Yeah. But so, going into...
Yeah, well, should we move into more, like, scenes?
Yeah, I want to talk about, kind of relates to, like, the whole mom thing when he, you know, runs into... Well, the whole scene where he runs into the other guy. I can't remember what country he was from. That he, like, ends up stabbing.
French soldier.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. So, yeah. He stabs, like, a French soldier and then immediately regrets it. And it's, like, a whole...
It's so sad.
It really is. And it's just him bouncing between, like, so much... Like, you could... He was just anxious on every level.
Because, like, you know, it was up close and personal. And he's just, like...
He wasn't trained for that. He wasn't prepared.
And then once
it's not what he wanted to do.
He opens up the wallet, sees the kid and the wife. Like, he just... instantly
spirals.
Yeah, like, I remember, like, there was one passage in there that it's, like, nobody ever thought to tell us that they were just poor bastards like us.
Mm-hmm. And they have, the same moms, you know, worrying about them. They have the same fear of death, like, all of it, as the Germans do, and everyone does. And I really liked that was included.
It was a good part. Just devastating, though.
It was. And again, beautiful writing. Like, it was. And then at the end, this really got me. At the end, where he's, like, finally walking back, and he's like, I say that I will do these things. I say that I will send a letter to your family and all this to, you know, make your life matter. And then he's also telling himself at the same time, but I know that I won't. And it's just... That's how they're trained. It's like he's already going in this kind of robotic and falling into, like, well, that's how it goes, and I just need to move past it, even though we know he's not.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I did not expect it to immediately shift to him being like, except I know that I'm not going to do that. And I don't blame him because you can't. How do you still continue to fight, but then think about that kind of thing?
Exactly, yeah. And, like, that's his training coming back. It's just like, well, honestly, not even his training, his survival.
Yeah.
Like, it depends on it. Like, he can't view them that way. Right. And to, like, in order to make it out of this, one, alive, two, mentally somewhat sound.
Yeah.
Like.
Exactly, because you just spiral from that. Like, there's no benefit. And you should be viewing these people as people because they are, but when you're forced to be in this situation, you know, you have to do what you can do to save yourself, which just sucks. And then when he gets back and he starts explaining this, and they're trying to, like, make him feel better. Yeah. Understandably so. His friends are trying to be like, well, he's the other team, and he would have done this to you and all this.
Which is
understandable, yeah.
Because, like, the guy was trying to kill him, too.
Right.
Paul just got lucky.
And it's just, like, they're all doing this. You know that they probably don't believe this either. Or, like, believe that it's... You know, they're just saying it because they have to get by. And it's just sad. Yeah,
I was thinking about this. Maybe we can keep this in, but I was doing a little bit of research on this book beforehand. But I was hearing about this beginning battle of World War I, where they're just figuring out how, like, deadly all the weapons they had, and basically this one French general was just like, oh, the German machine guns, no, like, whatever, we'll just charge. We'll take them over. But apparently in this one battle, which I don't know where it was or when it was or anything like that, but the French just charged these German lines. And the Germans were mowing them down. Like, it was an absolute slaughter. And apparently, like, it was getting so bad that the piles of bodies were like they would shoot shoot the French soldiers, and they would just fall back and stand up and die because like the pile of bodies behind them was just so tall. And apparently, when the French retreated back, they had the opportunity to just like shoot them all, but they were so disgusted that they just let them go. Like, they just stopped shooting, and they're just like.
Yeah. Oh my god. Wait, like the Germans stopped shooting?
Yeah, the Germans stopped shooting, and they're just like, go back. Like, we don't want to do this anymore.
We've already done enough.
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's insane.
Yeah. And like, that kind of like reminds me of just this moment in general. Like, that moment in, like, just, it's basically just smaller, more intimate.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my god.
It's crazy.
That really is. I don't even know what to say because that's insane. I can't believe that there's actually methods to do that, like machines out there that can do that, and
it's wild. And this, this is the first war where like they couldn't just do cavalry charges. Like war beforehand was still gruesome and terrible, but like this is like, and it's industrial war.
And it's dehumanizing because you're not up in personal, like they still like came to see, what they've done and prevented further action, but still it's like it's so easy. They make it so easy to do that where it doesn't even feel like they're human.
Yeah.
The opposing team, because they're not, they're just riling up these fires.
It makes me think of like, how like when everything gets industrialized, like for example, like the food industry, like those disgusting sort of just like conditions that like the animals are in until they get to the slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
Like it's literally like it's that transition, but for warfare. Like that's what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And like nobody knew how to deal with it, so they just dug trenches and then they just did full blown charges across no man's land for 5 years. Until the Americans came in finally, when everybody was just totally just demoralized and nothing was happening, and they're just like, okay, well, I guess we'll just break this chair over like the Germans' back and just end the war.
Yeah.
It's crazy though.
That really is.
Have you ever heard of that whole bar fighting analogy?
No.
For World War One? Let me see if I can find it.
Bar fighting. Let me make it up. Everyone's fighting, and then the American comes out behind the bar because they were hidden under, avoiding all this, and they're like, you know what, guys?
I found it. It's that's actually not too far off. Oh my god, it's so long, but it's so funny. Oh my god.
Let's just spend the next 5 minutes going over that. This is our new segment.
What is it? Oh my god, I want to show you this because it is so funny. All right, we'll go back. But yeah, guys, look, most of the people watching probably have heard it before if you're like history nerds, because like I heard about this and it was funny, and then the band kids got a hold of it and it wasn't funny.
Not the band kids. They haven't even been to war.
Yeah.
I don't know. Those band kids get pretty crazy though. Have you seen their bus fights? I mean, it's insane. It's like you're on the battlefield. Me, who has no experience with anything.
Oh, you play Call of Duty. You get it. Kidding.
Yeah, it's modern warfare.
Right.
I've seen a few clips of that with the Subway Surfers.
With the ghost man that everybody's simping after. Have you seen that phenomenon?
Yes, I have.
I don't get it.
Remember the vampire of the other game? The vampire lady who's like...
Oh, I get that.
My bad.
Well, no, it's literally Ghost. It's this masked man. You can't see anything. He's in a mask, and then all the girls are just like, oh, he's hot. I'm like,
women like it like that. That's why women like motorcycle guys on motorcycles.
Right, because you can't see their face. Anything about them. Oh my God, we're getting so off topic. All right, we'll circle back.
I don't know, this is kind of a war between ourselves.
It is a little bit. But let's talk about more moments.
Yeah.
In there.
What's your favorite moment? I don't know if you've said like your all-time favorite.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like that one scene where he's fighting the French soldier, and just that whole spiral afterwards, really good. Yeah. Like, that's probably my favorite scene. But another one that like comes to mind is when like they meet up with like the French women.
Okay, yeah. I'm glad you brought this up because I wanted to. I really liked that.
Yeah, it was interesting too because like a lot. Okay, like, you know, we get it. We understand this war through a Western point of view. So, German's bad, French, English, American good. But then like you would think, okay, so they're in France and there's these invading force Germans and then these French girls. I'm sitting here wondering, I'm like, why would they even want to spend time with these German soldiers? But then, of course, you realize, and like as I was reading, I had this whole realization too. I'm like, oh well, like they're all just young people living in like a terrible time, and they all kind of just get it. And I'm pretty sure they had bread too. So so they were just like, oh, you got bread? Yeah, we'll hang out.
No, that's what how it went. But like, I liked the kind of connection that they were able to build with these French women.
They couldn't even speak.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I love the aspect of including, you know, they're talking to each other, they're communicating, but they're not through words.
Yeah, like they have no idea what they're saying, but they get it. And it was a very nice moment. Like really I thought it was gonna turn kind of like dark.
Yeah.
But it was very like nice, like kind of sweet.
It was very sweet, but it was also upsetting just because he like at the very end when he is like really thinking hard about these women, and you can also see how young he is in this interaction because he's like hasn't like been in a relationship or anything really of the sorts, and he just kind of spirals again thinking about, you know, the things that he's missing and the way that this woman's treating him, and it's just like it's upsetting. But
and I'm pretty sure they don't even like have sex or anything. No. Like they just kind of like hold each other. It's just sweet. Yeah,
it's very wholesome, and it's just like, but it's devastating because we're like, everything else that's going on just sucks.
Yeah, literally. But that's one that came to mind too, because like when I was reading it, I was just like, wow. I was like, you know, like obviously I wasn't sitting here thinking like, oh, like they're German, so they're gonna do something bad, like. But I was just like, this might go wrong.
Right. Well, I thought it was just like, I didn't think anything. I thought more what would go wrong was them crossing over and they getting into trouble.
That too. Yeah, that's what.
Something like that.
The whole scene kind of like had me in suspense, but I don't even think when he wrote it, I don't even think he was like trying to make it like suspenseful at all.
I don't think so. I think he was just explaining like, hey, this is like something we're not allowed to do.
But we're doing it.
Yeah, and like we're not allowed to do this, but there's no harm to it.
Yeah.
And like I like including the part where they're like, well, we got to think of like what would they want? Like what should we take over? Like they're just including it, and it's like they can't even talk to these women, and it was just sweet.
Yeah, and they're just so happy. Like the fact, like, what was it? I think in that one scene where, like, they see them, they're just like running into the water with bread. They're like, like, come over here.
It was actually really funny. Like when that first happened, or like the first few parts, I was like, why are they doing this? Is so weird. I don't care. Like what has to come of this? Because like what? They're just like, because they're women, like whatever. I get it, they're lonely, but I don't care. And then when it actually turned out to be, I was like, I'm so glad he included this.
Yeah, it's a very nice addition. And, you know, it humanizes them as well.
Yeah.
Like, which is, you don't get that. You don't really get that for Germans, period. Because, obviously, the next war, which is completely reasonable. But, you know, like, you know, it was just interesting to see that point of view. And I really appreciated that. And, like, I mean, I've read a lot of these like anti-war sort of like books that were written by veterans, and like don't get me wrong, like I really like them, but they all kind of blend together, like you said, because they can have like the same tropes a lot of times, and like
and I already like agree with it.
Yeah, it's the same messaging a lot of times. Well, it can only have one message if it's anti-war and it's about war. So yeah, obviously it's kind of the same message, and I was like, I even had this dilemma when I wrote that short story. Because the class was just like, wow, this is really good, like you should try to get it published, or you should do like a whole memoir. And I was like I appreciate that, but like I'm not saying anything that 100 other people 100 other people haven't already said better, you know.
I get that. And I think like with this story, the writing carries it. Other than
absolutely,
that, it would
you can tell he's a writer first, which I appreciate. I've read a lot of rah-rah a lot of rah-rah America war memoirs, and although like it's not like they're bad, like I appreciate learning about these stories, but at the same time it's just like, don't pretty it up for me, you know.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know how, even if you're not anti-war, I don't know how you could glorify it at the same time, because you can't. It's not good. It's not what anyone should hope for.
The only glorifying that I will allow is like the heroic actions of like your fallen comrades. Like that is totally reasonable to me. But like glorifying it in any other way, I'm just
like glorifying the actual war part, like you can't do. It's not like, as someone that absolutely thinks that like the zombie apocalypse should happen. No one should think that the war should happen or another war should happen, and I couldn't imagine. I mean, I haven't read anything that really is close to that.
You know, I think we discussed this before too, but we need to read The Things They Carried, because like, although this book is amazing, like the one we're covering right now, but like The Things They Carried is the best.
Okay.
Easily. Vietnam War.
What were they carrying?
That's actually, dude, it's a big part of the book.
I gotta read the book?
Yeah, it's a big part of the book.
Okay. Tune in next week. I'm gonna find out what they carried. So
good. Like, man, I've been wanting to read that for so long though, but I've been basically like picking out a lot of these books lately. Now I want you to.
No, I'm making you. Well, actually, I won't spoil anything.
We will read, Emma. We will get through it.
Yeah, that's 2 weeks from now. Yeah. No, next week we will be going over the adaptation.
I gotta just queue it up on the audiobook and then read while I'm home, and we'll just chug it out. But my God, it would take me. Oh my God, it was like you with the road. Like I would sit there and I'd read like 10 pages, and it would take me 40 minutes, and I'm like just falling asleep.
Yeah, it's the right. It's the writing.
Writing
it's really makes, I think, the experiment.
Definitely, it's definitely part of the writing, but it's everything else happening. It's so boring.
Okay, we get it. You don't like women.
Yep.
No, I'm excited to read it. I don't know. I like it.
Maybe the more I get into it, the more I will. But anyways,
I think it's just one of the things that the good part is talking about it and like reflecting on it. Like that's
kind of like Dune.
Mm-hmm. That's what makes it. It's not necessarily actually reading it. It's what you get from the book. I mean, I'm like not that far into it, but I from Pride and Prejudice, that's kind of how I felt. Yeah, I know. Like I listened to one review, like it was like 3 girls reviewing Pride and Prejudice. And they like all love the movie, and that's why they chose the book to review. And they're like, anyone that actually enjoys reading this is lying. And I was like,
it's like us with the road.
And it was like they were like, I like the story, I like the characters, love the movie, but like actually enjoying reading her writing is just lying to themselves. And I'm like, I can kind of see that.
Yeah.
Like it's not our language at this point.
Yeah, it's what like.
And not our like written? What we do. I mean, like I think it was 1800s, and it's just not what we do now. We can't relate to these characters. Like, I sit on my phone. My like screen time is like an average of 6-7 hours. I don't know.
Honestly, the farthest I can go back to relating is like early 1900s, and then like
Yeah, and
before that, yeah.
At this book, actually.
Yeah, no, literally. If it goes before that, I just...
Yeah.
Like, I like a lot of authors that are around the time of, like, 1930 to 1960, like, and 70 even. Like, that period is, like, my sweet spot. Like, I can enjoy some stuff from that, but, like, you go before that and your boy's out. Like, I even, like, Lovecraft was, like early 1900s, and that is my limit. Like, I've read 3 of his short stories, and my God, the language is, but they're pretty good. Like, I won't lie. But anyways,
I like Shakespeare.
I don't. I'm gonna. I don't care. I don't like him.
We should go over The Great Gatsby.
Yes.
I didn't want to read Macbeth, but yeah,
I've read it.
That's like, you've read Macbeth for school?
Yeah. No, I remember I had to read that for school, and I enjoyed it.
Oh. Yeah. So why do you hate Shakespeare? You're just lying to yourself?
Scott F. Fitzgerald, you mean?
Oh, I thought you were talking about Macbeth still. We were on 2 different pages. You read The Great Gatsby?
Yeah.
What? Why am I not? My school never required me to read anything, apparently.
Then I had to read Fahrenheit 451.
I had to read
Buns.
That sucked. I'm sorry. We're not ever going to go over that.
Nope.
It's so
I know it has a movie adaptation, but no. I'm not putting myself through that again.
We had to watch the movie. After we finished the book, we watched the movie.
Yep.
And it sucked.
This is not good.
It's not. Have you seen
The Great Gatsby? Book's bad. Firemen make fire, burn book. Not good.
I did like the plot. And then
I didn't.
I liked the idea, and it was before its time. Like, it was before, like, he kind of wasn't wrong, but then he just, like, made it awful. Like, it didn't do a good job explaining the story. I don't know. I didn't like it. But did you watch the movie, The Great Gatsby? Mm-hmm. Oh, so I guess we won't go over it.
I want to. I want to.
Alex reads and watches everything. I need to tell you to stop doing that.
I'm the goat. Okay, let's get back to this book.
I guess.
So, any other striking sort of scenes?
Well, okay, I kind of want to jump back. The beginning, like, really threw me off. Like, I really did jump straight into it.
It threw me off, too, and I watched the movie, and I knew what was happening, but I was still thrown off. And I was getting confused with the characters, even though I've seen the damn movie. So
I cannot name a single character.
Yeah, like, Kat was the only one that stood out.
Yeah, because I was the only one I can name. I mean, I don't know anything that he did, but I was
and then Mueller.
Kat's a funny name.
Miller. Did I say it weird? Miller.
Yeah.
In like a German accent. Miller.
What about a British accent?
Miller.
What about an Australian accent?
Did you notice they called them Tommies?
Tommies?
Yeah, they called the British Tommies, yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of British people named Tommy.
Yeah, no, that's why they called them that.
That's crazy.
Dude.
Why? They might as well just call him Tommy Teeth or something.
Have you ever heard of, like, the nickname from Marines, like, called devil dogs?
Swish? Fish?
They call them devil dogs.
Devil dogs.
And it's actually Navy. No, Marines.
Shoot. Okay.
Yeah, Marine Corps. So they actually got that from this war, that nickname, because they fought them in the Battle of Bellewood and a bunch of other battles. Like the U.S. Marine Corps was heavily involved in fighting in World War I against the Germans.
Okay.
And they earned the nickname after, I don't know if it was after the Battle of Bellewood, but they gained legendary status from that. But
legendary.
But the Germans came up with nicknames about them. They called them, like, Teufelhunden. These damn Marines are Teufelhunden, like devil dogs. So then the Marines adopted that. They do that all the time.
I haven't seen that before.
Yeah. Like they'll, like, whatever the enemy calls them, they just take pride in it and they call themselves. Like in the Gulf War, they had, like, the high and tight cuts. So, like, shaved on the side, but then, like, hair on the top, and it looks like a jar. So then they called them jarheads, and then they're like, "Oh, we're jarheads." But yeah, that's where they got the nickname.
That's kind of sick.
It is. I mean, the Marines, like.
That's like a power move.
It is. Like, you gotta love the Marines, man. You gotta love the Marines.
Yeah. Do I, though? They get enough of my money.
You taxpayer, you. Anyways, you want to talk about the end?
Yeah, I do. How did you feel about that?
Perfect.
Perfect? Mm. Perfect?
Yeah.
Perfect?
Perfect.
That's the only way that you would have described it? You wouldn't change a single thing?
I wouldn't. I thought that was the best way to end it.
I think it should have had a happy ending. Because clearly we know that the war did. No, I think it was expected. I mean, it didn't surprise me, and so, like, I don't...
I liked because it was so sudden.
Really?
I liked that a lot. And, like, I... Obviously, like, you know, it's the name of the book, so when it says it...
Yeah.
You're like, oh...
I like that part.
It felt so... like, when that line came up, like, not just because it was the name of the book, it just felt so heavy.
Yeah.
Like, All Quiet on the Western Front, like, finally. But then Paul couldn't be there.
Yeah. Well, like, I liked how it's still just covering, like, it's just moving on, basically.
Yep, immediately.
Mm-hmm, that's how it goes. And no person matters.
Yeah, and this, like, what was it? I think it was 60% of every single soldier that was on, like, the battlefront of World War One got, like, either injured or killed. Mm-hmm. So that's an entire generation dead in Europe. Mm-hmm. So Paul, I think, is meant to
represent everyone.
Yeah, like, represent, like, the generation that never came to be.
Yeah.
And it's
100%.
I think that was a perfect ending for him too, because, like, just the way that they said that he died too, and he looked like he was relieved. Mm-hmm. Because he's like, the suffering's done. I thought it was very perfect the way to end it. It sucked. It made me sad, but I was like, well, it could end no other way.
Yeah, 100%. It had to go that way, and like, it kind of sucked because it wasn't right before the chapter before. He was kind of like, you know, things are looking up.
Yeah, because the war's about to end.
Mm-hmm. And, like, but then he was still, like, relieved because if he went home, his life was still, like, he wouldn't have gotten anything. Yeah, like, he wouldn't have lived his life.
Yeah, he would have just been stuck.
Mm-hmm. And then he would have had to go to World War II. And
literally, because he would be extra valuable because he had combat experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was good. I'm glad that he didn't, like, make it into a happy ending, but I never saw that coming. Because, like, you could tell that this author's not going to do that. There definitely would be some out there that'd be like, oh, well. And not even, like, necessarily a happy ending, but I'm glad he didn't, like, make it so, you know, he got sent home and then he's, like, suffering or trying to figure out that. Because it needed to be ended. That's it.
Because all his friends are dead. Mm-hmm. Like, there was nothing left for him.
Yeah. And not even necessarily that, but just, like, the book needed to have a conclusion. Because we know now that the war did and how it went. So it's not like we needed to leave that up to interpretation. So, like, I'm glad he just ended that storyline.
And, so the most tragic part about this is he died in October of 1918. And so it just says October, but you know it was right before the armistice was signed. Mm-hmm. So literally maybe like a week out. Yeah. And then the fighting was done. So he was that close.
Yeah.
That makes it even more tragic.
Right. Yeah.
It's a bummer.
It kind of reminds me of, like, how a lot of people that were in concentration camps in World War II, like, they were still in these camps before, even after World War II ended. Like, they were still in the camps because there weren't, like, U.S. soldiers or any other soldiers coming to release them. And so, like, they survived to the end of World War II, but then died before someone actually came to get them.
Because they had no idea where it was.
Yeah, and they didn't know that the war ended.
Oh, man.
Or, like, the people in the camps didn't know that the war ended, so...
You've got to watch Band of Brothers.
What is that?
You never heard of that?
No.
You've never heard of Band of Brothers?
No.
Bruh moment. Wait, hold up. Seriously?
No, what is it on?
It's on HBO. It's a mini-series.
Oh, maybe I have heard of it.
Yeah, it's called, like, the best, like, show of all time. Because
Who's in it?
I mean, a bunch of people. But basically, It's just about the 101st Airborne from the American military, and basically, it goes through it follows them through D-Day to the end of the war in Europe, fighting the Nazis. Mm-hmm. You have to watch it.
Okay.
It's so.
I feel like I've heard of it because I know.
Yeah, you would. I mean, like, you don't have to be like a history buff to love that show. Like, it's so good.
Okay. I'll add that to my list.
And then I talked to you about the Pacific. That's the one where it's Helmet for My Pillow.
Yeah.
That one's also equally as good, both on HBO. That's what HBO has kind of coined that. Like, they do the mini series for like World War II stuff.
Okay.
So you get like Band of Brothers was the European theater, and the Pacific is obviously Pacific.
Yeah. I can't believe you are making me continue to pay for HBO so I can watch all these
Keep
shows.
it. I'm like, there's so many good things on it.
I'm broke.
Keep it.
I'm not in the 1%, as I said last episode.
Neither am I. It's eating my account alive, but I will keep that going.
Yeah. I need to add that to my list.
Yeah.
And then we're actually going to review it next week, too. Every war.
Every war.
We're going to rate and rank every war next episode. You know, tune in. I'm really looking forward to that. We're actually not going to cover the show the movie, adaptation until the week after that, so then we continue to push off Emma.
Yeah, yep.
Now, actually, next week we will be covering the adaptation for this book, so you'll have to tune in. Comment if you're excited, like and subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode, and I think this is all we have to say, right? Did we miss anything?
Yeah. No.
I was like, shoot, this book really isn't that long.
No, yeah, it's an easy read, and if you want to, I don't know, gain an understanding of World War I a little bit better.
Yeah, you don't have to be a history buff to enjoy it. And, like, even though my enjoyment wasn't, like, that great or that high, it was still, like, important. Like, I'm glad I read it because the writing was beyond me. Like, it was that good.
It's awesome.
And, you know, listen to the audiobook. Like, on Audible, it was really good.
Yeah.
The narrator was good. So even if you don't want to buy the book or don't want to spend the time reading it, I definitely suggest the audiobook.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say.
Same.
Time to go fight. We're gonna do a thumb war after this.
War.
Comment down below who you think's gonna win. All right, bye.